Every little thing became death. I would have a tiny headache and it would be a brain tumour. I couldn't sleep because I worried that she'd stop breathing. It sort of turned into postnatal depression, I think.
Did you talk to anyone close to you around that time about how you were feeling?
No.
Really?
What I thought a good idea was having her in the show.
Oh.
So I thought, I'm playing a nanny. There's one scene where I have the baby and I was like, I'll have my real baby. I've got one. It was a terrible idea.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. Today's guest is an actress who, I've actually seen her on stage, I've seen her on TV. I love her work, but there is one character in particular that I have fallen in love with, which is Rose from The Split. We will be talking about The Split Barcelona. I can't not. Today's guest also has one daughter. It's Fiona Button.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Introduction. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm very excited to have you on.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and we were just talking about how I'm so impressed with the amount of stuff you do. Can't get over it. That you're in a play, and you have 3 kids, and you're trekking the Himalayas, and books, and I have one job, which is a struggle, and one child.
Which is clearly not a struggle, obviously.
What, acting?
No, the child.
Oh, the child. No, actually, acting since having a child is less of a struggle.
Yeah.
I would say. And the
It's a
child
joy
bit,
to go to.
fine,
Yeah.
easy. I could do that. Trained in it. I've done it for a while.
Yeah.
But the mothering bit, I have no experience, unfortunately. Not qualified.
I don't think any of us are, though. I think we're all
No.
winging it.
We are. We absolutely are. And I had no idea quite how much it would be flying by the seat of my pants.
But then, you're here because The Split Barcelona's
Yes.
coming, which is a 2-part,
Yes.
which I was very excited about. I'm just so glad you're all back. It's just so good. The writing, you women, everything about it is just, it's just superb.
Oh, you are so sweet.
No, but it is though, like the complexities of life and female friendships and like the sisterhood, literally with sisters, and I just think it's so beautifully woven and delivered by you guys.
Well, yeah, and I think that like Abby Morgan, who writes it, there's not many that can do that. Like she can really just write these characters that are so true and so full of depth, and make it funny and relatable, and then just like really just get to the crux of something and make you sob, in a second, in a heartbeat, and then make you laugh again.
Yeah.
And also it's got a bit of scandal. Like, it's got it all.
Oh, that's the thing, isn't it? I think when you first start watching it, you're like, oh, God, it's all about divorce and...
I know, procedural. It's like, no, come on.
But I love that kind of...
Oh, you like that?
That hard edge to it in that sort of world. But it just brings another dimension to it as well. And the fact that that's almost a family business, but it's not.
100%. It is procedural, but it's dealing with these high emotional cases where it's all people's hearts on the line.
Yeah.
And so even though it feels clinical to talk about procedural stuff, it's really not, is it? Because it's all about breaking up families and dealing with the fallout of a divorce, which is really hard.
And also something that we don't talk about, I don't think. I think it's still such a
No,
massive...
certainly not on TV.
Yeah.
And I think I think Abby really wanted to demystify any shame around divorce, and I think that was a big part of why she wrote it. And it certainly hasn't been on TV, and I think it's 1 in 2 marriages.
Yeah.
So it's 50% of a lot of people's experience, and so I think it's no surprise that lots of people watched it. I think.
Yeah. It's just brilliant. We'll come back to The Split in a bit, because I know that you went back to work with your baby.
I did.
To start with, but we'll go back to that later. So we'll work chronologically. So talk to me about your childhood. Where did you grow up? Did you have any siblings? You were born in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can both relate to having European parents.
Yes.
My mother is Swiss. My father is British. I was born in Lausanne, but I'm a complete mix because my grandmother's Dutch and my grandfather's Greek.
Whoa!
So I've got a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
So my mother met my father in Switzerland. She picked him up hitchhiking.
No.
Yeah. When they were in their early 20s. And he stayed in Switzerland, and they had me and my older sister. And then we came over to the UK when I was 4.
Right.
And they had met young. It was perhaps a little too soon. It didn't last.
Okay.
So cackling away at my parents' divorce. Lol, they broke up. Reader, they're not together.
Do you remember any of that time in Switzerland?
So I actually don't remember a lot pre-4. I don't know why. Lots of people talk about having memories really, really early.
Yeah. How old were you when your parents separated?
So I was 4.
Okay.
So it was around the time that they moved
over.
Yeah. And so I don't remember a lot about the actual kind of severance.
Yeah.
But I suppose now when I look back, there are things that I'm like, oh, well, that must have been hard. And having your own kid as well.
Yeah.
I think now, I look at her when she's 4, and if my husband, suddenly wasn't there, I would that's kind of like, whoa. I think everything, once you become a parent, suddenly your whole life previously becomes suddenly under the microscope.
And you hit certain ages.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, to have gone through that at this age.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I credit my mum and my sister as well, and my grandmother with such great mothering role models.
Yeah.
My mum kind of did it by herself for a while, in a foreign country by herself with 2 kids. Doing a degree, nailing it. And my grandmother just giving us all the love and all the she was a real nurturer.
Yeah.
And then my older sister, when, she was a real looker after her.
Were you always creative?
Yes. I would say that I put on a lot of plays to my family. Mm-hmm. I wasn't always very confident though.
Right.
So I was confident in the comfort of my own home. Mm-hmm. So we would make up endless plays about things, and I would be usually an old lady. I loved playing an old lady and falling over a lot, as old ladies do. So clowning around a lot as a kid, for sure. Playing, yeah.
Yeah. And at what point did you kind of go, oh, actually, this is the way? Yeah,
I've always been asked that. And I think I never was one of those people that's like, I want this as a job. Mm-hmm. I've always been someone who just doesn't really think about the future very much. I just like what's here is kind of what's happening. And so I suppose the kind of milestones for me, the kind of path towards becoming an actress were my mum forcing me to go to an audition for the local panto, The Wizard of Oz, which I got. And I played an Oz lady and a Winky and a Munchkin in that when I was 10.
Nice.
So I loved that. And then secondary school didn't have a drama department. So it sort of went again after that, and I didn't really do very much. But then we had this drama teacher arrive in year 9 called Miss Connor. I'll never forget her. And she was so cool. She just spoke to us like normal people.
Yeah.
And she was the one that kind of made me become a bit obsessed with drama again. And then I was too scared to audition for the school play, but then Jane Critchell dropped out, so I took her part.
Do you remember the names?
It really makes me laugh. Out. She got sick. Bad luck, Jane. I was in.
I think there's a thing that when you're acting, especially early on, I don't know if you felt it, was there ever... I feel like you can get so stuck in it and the auditions and the wanting and the drive, and you're constantly trying to get to those places. And then when you'll get there, you're constantly like, if I think back to different jobs, you know, so often, especially in the theatre world, you might have a, you know, however long contract, and you spend half of it worried about what's coming next. So you're never actually in it. You're constantly kind of worried about the next thing.
Yeah, I think that's got worse as it's gone on, actually.
Really?
I used to be absolutely fine finishing a job and being like, well, just done a job. I've got some time to relax.
Yeah.
But now I'm panicking before I've even started about the next thing.
Really?
And, yeah. And I like to have things stacked up if possible. But that's not always possible. So
Well, so with things like that, how do you factor in motherhood? Even thinking about having a baby, that something, did you ever think, I'd love to have a child, that I'd love to be a mum?
So it definitely stopped me for a while, for sure. Yeah. I think I was too scared about, if I get pregnant, then I can't do that and I can't do this. And then I ruptured my Achilles, actually, when I was doing a play. And that took me out of it. And
did that happen on stage?
No, at my sister's hen do.
Because I've broken my ankle on stage, but I mean...
Okay, well, no. Everyone's like, oh, no, did you... It was quite a physical thing as well. They were like, did you fall down from the... No, I was playing netball on a hen do. But yes, when I did that, it kind of sort of reset things. And I was like, right, I'm getting on. Just let's start trying and, you know, screw whatever happens career-wise. And
was it literally being forced to stop then that made you kind of go?
I think so, yeah. And being forced to stop and realising it's not the end of the world. Like, if you can't do a job, like, you carry on and the world goes on. And it's not, because it's so, doing it is so part of your core, and you do the thing that you most love in the world.
Yeah.
It then does become a little bit, you sort of deify it a little bit, and you give it a bit too much reverence sometimes, and you have to just check yourself and be like, it's just work.
Yeah.
There's life as well. But yeah, I did. That was the moment where I was like, okay, we'll start now. Start trying.
Did it take you long?
It didn't. I was lucky, very, very lucky in that respect. Yeah, it was the first couple of months it happened. So I was one of those ones where it's like, there's a bit too soon, actually. One of those ones. Which I'm really aware of people listening and being like, it's annoying when people... I just feel very conscious about that conversation. I have so many friends that have struggled and so many people that are struggling, and it's always tricky when you're like, well, it just happened.
But then there will be people that are, you know, I think as long as we're all open and listening to each other, I don't think, you know, we can't take on other people's experiences and let them, you know.
Exactly, and I can't lie.
Yeah.
But yes.
And also, if you are struggling to get pregnant, then you don't wish that on other people.
No.
You know what I mean?
God,
it's
no.
kind of like, actually, people like you are the hope for so many other people.
Of course. And my friends, you know, at the time who were struggling had all the love in the world for me being pregnant, and you put that aside.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Where were you when you found out?
In Pret.
Fancy.
Pret a manger. I knew that something, or I didn't know, but something weird that happened was I went out for dinner and had a lovely glass of white wine, and I just didn't want it. Had no idea. I didn't want it, and I was so confused. Like, I was like, I just didn't want it. Yeah. Anyway, that was why.
Well, and then how did you get from the glass of wine to Pret?
Oh, sorry. No, it wasn't. Sorry, yes. My brain is just... So the first moment where something weird happened was the glass of wine.
Yeah.
Then we were in Pret and we went and I did a pregnancy test in the loo. And then that's where we found out.
Was your partner outside waiting?
Yeah. So...
How was your pregnancy?
Most of it was great. Right. I always remember listening to Emma Thompson being like, I just loved having this thing like swishing around inside me. And that's exactly how I felt. I was like, it just felt great.
Were you working throughout?
Yes, I was in a play. And I still worry about whether I traumatised my unborn child by being.
What play was it?
Oh God, it was called They Drink It in the Congo, which sounds like a very light-hearted play. It wasn't at all.
One of those ones you get tickets for and you turn up and you're like, oh, this is not what I signed
it's
up
not
for.
a musical. It was God, it was about the mining crisis in the Congo, which is brutal. And there was a scene in it where I played an NGO, and there was like a whole machine gun scene and lots of shouting, and so I'm like, did she hear that and think that was happening? Don't know. We'll never know.
You have to do loads of like nice soothing sounds afterwards to just try and counteract.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of sleeping in between. So I'm hoping that kind of soothed it, and maybe the rhythm of it meant that it wasn't out of the blue.
You weren't hearing it in the same. They weren't hearing it in the same way.
Yes, and I wasn't actually there. I was just pretending.
This is true. This is true. Did your nervous system know this?
I don't know. Depends how good an actress I am.
That thing, kind of going, wanting to go there, but also not.
Also, shush, shut up.
Mummy's just pretending, darling.
She's just a joke. It's not real. Yes, so I worked in that for up until 7 months. They kept having to take out the costume. Yeah. So
did it matter that your character?
Well, so I was a bit crafty because I didn't tell the director. Sorry, Mike. And he was whoops. And then I did tell him when I'd had the 12-week scan, and he sort of went white. And was like, okay. And I was like, but it's fine because, they can now. And I was thinking I'd wear quite baggy stuff anyway. And he was brilliant about it, actually. It's slightly panicky, but brilliant.
Yeah.
And they were very accommodating and gave me a bed and things in between shows. Yeah, it was nice.
That's lovely.
Yeah. And then I had a good amount of time before the arrival.
Was it the end of the run, or had you kind of gone, no, I need to actually finish by this
No,
day?
It was the end. Yeah, I got to the end.
That's good timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just it was at the Almeida, so it was like they only do kind of 3-month run. So got to the end, did every show, and was a lot bigger by the last performance. Starting to be like, we know she's pregnant, guys. Or she's had a really big dinner.
Pasta lunch, there we go. And then how did you feel further along your pregnancy? Did you manage to sort of maintain this, enjoying the swishing of a baby inside you?
Yeah, no, you can tell where this is going. No, I think, so I do really suffer from anxiety. And I think particularly health anxiety is my flavour of mental ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
And I really struggled in the last sort of weeks, particularly because she was late. She was 2 weeks late. And each day, I remember up past the due date, I was getting more and more anxious and more kind of fretful. And I think I'd just done too much reading about the birth.
There is that. I do think sometimes
it was that,
it's hard, isn't it? Because some people need all the knowledge, and for other people, it does feed anxiety.
Yeah.
It's really hard finding that balance and discovering what works for you.
Yeah, I know. And I think knowledge is power, but equally there's a bit of an overload going on in terms of knowing every single possible worst outcome that could happen. Yeah. And I feel like I did. I'd heard every story about inductions going wrong. I'd heard every story about cesareans going wrong, about emergency C-sections, about how you should have a home birth, about how even if you go after your due date, it's okay. But then the medical side of things were saying it's absolutely not okay. You've got to be induced on day 8 or 9, is it? So I was really, I think all of that, as well as the fact that I am prone to really bad anxiety, particularly health anxiety.
Yeah.
Meant
Had you
that,
flagged that to anyone?
No, because I thought I'd had it covered because I did CBT, about 8 years or something before getting pregnant, and so I'd sort of forgotten about it because it was okay.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had a real flare up, but obviously, pregnancy and about to push something out of you is gonna do some triggering.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really struggled in that 2-week period, and I just remember everyone being like, "You've just got to have some oxytocin and relax, hug each other."
How does that work? Because someone who's anxious being told to relax, does that really work?
That's how you fix it. You just say relax, and then you relax.
Oh God, why didn't you think of that?
And so I believe, although I don't know, but I think it sort of contributed to her not coming out.
Yeah.
Because I was in fight. I wasn't in, fight mode all the time. I was too scared.
Yeah.
So she was late, and along came induction.
Did you talk to anyone close to you around that time about how you were feeling?
No.
Really?
No. It was so stupid. And then post-birth as well, which we'll get to, but I'm so cross with myself for not being more honest about my level. Like, I couldn't cope with them even taking my blood pressure. They'd have to do it loads of times because it would be through the roof, because my heart would be like, like it was. I was so scared. I was not at all cool about it. And I think I sort of pride myself in being like quite a cool, chilled person. And I was like, yeah, the birth's going to be great. It's fine. And actually, I needed to just come to terms with who I really was, which is a terrified person. So, yeah, no, I didn't really talk about it. Yeah,
it's hard when a realisation comes later.
Yes, exactly. When you're in it, it's hard to realise that that's not normal or not everyone's experience. You just think that that's what it is and that's what happens. But ultimately, it's not everyone's experience to be that frightened. And
So what was that like then, going to hospital knowing you were going to be induced when you're encased in that fear?
Yeah, terrifying. I mean, yeah, really terrifying. Although I suppose the one good thing about that was that I was going to hospital and I was like, right, I'm here. Because I'd entertained having a fucking home birth. I mean, obviously I'm not the right person to have a home birth. What was I thinking? Gee. What?
I mean, it might have alleviated some stress. It might have made you feel more at home.
Well, there is that, of course.
But it also, it depends where you feel safe. I feel safe, and I feel safe in a nice hospital with a doctor.
Yeah.
Other people don't feel that way. I hypnobirthed and I still believe in hospital births. I believe two can coexist.
It can be, yes.
I don't feel like you have to be a purist about, I think you literally have to grab hold of whatever works for you.
100%. And I think a home birth is amazing. I mean, my best friend had 2 home births and it worked for her because she did feel more comfortable at home.
I was tempted by the third, but then I also felt like I don't want to tempt fate because I've done it twice in a hospital and it's gone really well.
And were you in the birthing,
I'd done hypnobirthing, so I did have my obstetrician come in the first time, but he had a train to catch.
No.
And so I got an episiotomy, which I think had it not been my first, I probably would have gone
God, so you think he did it because he was in a rush?
Well, no, he was an amazing doctor. I just think maybe, and also I love my birth. I did hypnobirthing.
Okay,
I absolutely love it. As soon as Buzz was out, I was like, that was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced.
That's amazing.
Second time round, it was just midwife led, and Buddy just flew out, like literally
the dream.
Flew like some animal being let out of a cage in a really
incredible,
crazy way. And then Max was a bit slower and a bit tricksy and but then Buddy had bashed his head the night before and needed stitches on his head, and I think I was a bit preoccupied mind-wise about where he was.
Blame yourself.
Blame myself, exactly.
It's my fault. Everything's my fault.
But they're all really, really different. But the first two were great experiences that I probably would have been a good candidate for having a home birth.
Interesting.
But that superstitious side of my brain was like, it ain't broke. Don't fix it.
No. And you can absolutely get nowadays, because there's so much research and so many people saying how we need to feel we're relaxed and, comfortable.
Yeah.
That now so many hospitals have the lovely birthing units.
Yeah.
And that's what I would have wanted. But we didn't have that because we were getting the induction. But you can get those. You can get special lighting in some of them, and fold down beds and things and bouncy balls, and so you can absolutely get that homey experience.
Yeah, you can.
But yeah, no. So
did
I
yours
was
feel
terrified.
quite sterile then going into the hospital?
Yes, I mean, but also I do think that going into the hospital, there is a part of you that's like, okay, well now I'm here and everyone's checking me and then checking her, and then I don't need to.
That must have alleviated a little bit of the anxiety.
Yeah,
because it's no longer. I think a massive part of, especially at that. Well, the whole of pregnancy, but especially later on, is everything is on you feeling it or being aware of it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And that is such a massive thing to carry.
It's huge. And it's also, it then makes every little twinge that you have and then I'm sure that everything I did have, which was some twinges, I stopped it. I sort of feel like I was like, oh. So it's like someone, I'm looking at them and then they hid away again. So going in was actually, so the fear of it obviously was the worst part. And it's, like Inside Out 2, I always think that the anxiety thing is like mapping out every single possibility that could happen. And once you're in the hospital, it's kind of like, well, there's nothing I can do now. Because I don't have to make a decision about what's the right thing to do. I think that's what I struggled with.
Yeah, relinquishing that control is something quite nice in it.
Yeah, yeah. So they did I had the pessary, and was lucky actually because I went into labour off the pessary.
Nice.
Was
that
good.
Nice?
No.
Okay. I take it back.
No, Dee, it wasn't. It was a stabbing pain. I've heard labour pains like described as quite kind of long and like squeezy. And this was like stabby.
Eesh.
Like really stabby and highly painful, but clearly not doing very much.
That is because if I think back, it's like your muscles are doing something.
Yeah.
And not.
It felt wrong to me.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. I don't know what's happening.
But again, it's hard because you've never experienced that before, so you don't know what you're meant to be feeling.
100%.
So again, it's up to you to kind of go, is this real? Is this normal?
Yeah.
Is this
Should
different?
I believe that thought? No.
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah. I mean, but it was just, they were very frequent, it's like hard and fast, isn't it? Because your body's kind of gone into shock.
Yeah.
To kind of produce those contractions synthetically. So they were fast and high pain. Also, we all have different pain thresholds.
Yeah.
Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I've got a really low pain threshold.
But maybe the pain's different for you. Maybe your body deals with it differently.
Who knows? I think also they kept checking me and I had that thing where there was not a lot happening.
Right.
So that was sort of 10 in the morning, and then by midnight it was kind of, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot do this pain because the contractions were every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I got an epidural. And then it sort of ticked along all right.
How did you feel once you had an epidural?
Jangly. Lots of people.
Describe this jangly, because all I'm thinking is keys jangling in a pocket.
Yeah,
okay,
a bit like that.
Literally like that, right.
So like the pain went, but I felt a bit like, I thought I was going to have a lovely sleep.
Right.
But I didn't. I wish I'd had something else. Like, what's the one, pethidine? That makes you really like
chill,
sleepy.
Right.
But I didn't have that. I had the epidural.
Okay.
But at least the contractions had stopped. So that's good. So I just sort of lay there And I had the clicker thing.
Yeah. Is that to top yourself up?
To top yourself up. So I could kind of administer. And that went on, and then it got to crunch time, and that's when it all started getting a bit more. That's that was the red button moment, because her heart rate dropped. Which actually I was fine in that moment.
Really?
Yeah, because of one born every minute. Because I was like, my husband was kind of like, oh, and I was like, it's okay. This happens all the time on one born every minute. They press the button, everyone comes in, it's fine. So I felt okay. And because amazing midwife was like, your contractions are really regular, everything's as it should be, like it's all going fine. And she was like, this baby's coming out not the sunroof, the other one. What do they say?
Oh.
Sunroof cesarean, right?
Yeah. It's not that
Vaginally.
one. Yeah,
she was like, you're
one.
going to have a vaginal birth.
Right, okay.
But there's not some kind of cutesy word for it, is there?
No.
No,
we haven't come up with that one yet.
No, we haven't. Wonder why. Wonder why they go like sunroof.
Coming out the front doors.
Coming out the front door.
It's disgusting. Not the sunroof or the back doors.
Oh, God, imagine the back door.
Well, sometimes it comes out both. Who knows?
Oh, God. Sometimes the front door and the back door. Anyway. So she was like, you're going to have the baby vaginally.
Yes.
And so then I stopped clicking the thing, because I was like, I quite want to feel being able to push. So I stopped that. The red button happened. Everybody runs in. I had a sort of quite firm obstetrician lady come in and just be like, right, come on now. I liked it, though.
Really?
Yeah. She was quite kind of no nonsense. And I didn't know that I only had basically 3 goes to get her out.
Right.
That's what they were giving me. Otherwise, would have had to go for an emergency C-section, because her heart rate was dropping. So I had 3 goes, and she was like, come on now. I was like, oh, okay. And then there was these people holding my legs. I was like, right. And in that moment, like, every anxiety left.
Yeah.
I just was like, this is it. This is it. And it was like a out of body kind of like warrior moment where I just like gave it everything.
Yeah.
And I think on the 3rd push was when she came out.
I mean, it blows my mind what we do. What our bodies do.
I know.
The fact that, that sort of grah.
Yes. Because I didn't think I had it in me.
Yeah.
And like, I think when push comes to shove, it's like, what are you going to do? You've got no choice. You can't leave.
Yeah. This is all there is, actually.
Yeah. So just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And the determination with which I sort of gave it, and she came out really quickly. She was little.
Right.
So thank you, Fordy.
Can you remember meeting her for the first time?
I can, yeah. She, I was and also then the anxiety kicked back in. I was like, is she okay? Is she okay? Is she okay? Because I don't think she cried straight away. I remember her being a bit
Which,
quiet.
again, one born every minute, you know that you're waiting for that cry. Like, there's those things, aren't
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's drummed in.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily... Is that true, that they all cry first straight away?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I think it's just something we've all...
A healthy
drummed
little
in.
bonny baby will cry and cry.
Because I guess it means that they've definitely taken their first breath if they're...
Yeah. It was relief, but also accompanied with like this surge of like love and joy and you know what you'd want.
Yeah.
And she fed straight away, which was good.
Yeah.
Then she didn't.
Not so great.
Not so great. But that initial moment, was a good one.
Did you have to get help with feeding?
Yeah, she didn't. She wouldn't do it. Like, she just was sort of looking around and, you know, wasn't really interested. And also I thought that babies cry when they're hungry, right? That's what I was like, oh, they cry and then I feed it. Because I'd done so little reading about post-actual babies.
I think most people do. I think the biggest thing is, how am I going to get the baby out?
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're like, oh, what do I do with you now?
What now? So I was like, well, she'll cry, I'll feed her, and then she'll go back to sleep. And she slept a lot.
Yeah.
And actually then got dehydrated because I didn't know that you were supposed to wake them up and feed them and try. I was just like, well, she's not interested. She's just, she's not hungry.
Yeah.
So that was a lesson. That was the first lesson of many. But yes, we had amazing. I remember the midwife that did it just went, don't know what she did, like that. And then she did it.
I remember being in hospital and just suddenly, I think all of your worries about your body go out the window straight away anyway.
I didn't even think about it.
But the amount of people that would have touched my boobs or, how do you express? I can't possibly express into that syringe. Like, how do I do this? And then just having someone kind of just knead your boob for a bit.
Do it.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. So please just help me in this moment because it's just too overwhelming to even try to understand what you're getting me to do.
No, 100%. I felt the same. Yeah, I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
After that, yeah.
How long did you stay in hospital for?
We were in, because she'd got dehydrated and then she'd had some, she had low blood sugar, I think. So they just wanted to monitor. So we were in for 4 days, just keeping an eye and feeding her up.
So what did that do to your health anxiety when you now have a newborn to have further health anxiety over?
Yeah. So every little thing became death. So every, and I did also have some things, like I found a lump in my boob on the day she was born, I think.
Right.
So there were some things that would have been worrying for anybody. But also there were things that, I would have a tiny headache and it would be a brain tumour, or I couldn't sleep because I worried that she'd stop breathing. So I think I basically, it sort of turned into postnatal depression, I think, because, and that wasn't my idea of what postnatal depression was, because I thought that was apathy, thought it was like a disinterest almost. Don't know why, something I'd read probably. And what I didn't realise was that this high anxiety that I felt, I couldn't leave the house with her because I was too scared that something would fall. I mean, I was just like terrified. And my, sort of was a bit of a mess afterwards. Yeah. And what I didn't struggle with was loving her. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that, because I think, I have friends who haven't had that bond straight away, and I immediately had this great bond with her, and there were moments of sheer joy, so many, the first smile and all of those things, but mixed with this terrifying fear that I now had this responsibility and that I could also die, and that she could, and it shocked me, and also I didn't really understand it either.
Well, having had CBT before and known that you can talk to people about things, that it's you don't have to hide, were you able to face what was happening to you and talk about it? Or was there part of you that sort of just soldiered on?
I'm very lucky because I have amazing people around me, and my mother and my best friends actually at that time, because my sister had her baby 6 months before. Aww. So she was very much in that, and it was my mum that kind of pointed it out and was like, this isn't quite normal what's happening to you, and I couldn't leave the house, and then my best friend as well was like, oh, I remember my birthday, they all sort of crowded around me in a kind of, that way that friends can do, and I'm really grateful for that, because it saved me, and then my husband found a therapist, and literally was like, go and see her. and I did, and slowly I sort of came to terms with the fact that what I was experiencing wasn't okay, and I had to try and come to terms with it and try and get better. I wasn't well.
Yeah.
So yeah, very grateful for all the people that I had.
I think it's also in that knowing that there are those people there that get it and get you and accept you unconditionally.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
you are facing something that feels like it's all consuming and it's all on you, and it can eat away at you and it can control you, like not going out. So to have other people that are kind of, you don't need to listen to that.
Yeah.
We've got you, whatever this thing is that it might be telling you, we've got you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that that being inside your head can be such a scary and lonely place, especially when you're a new mum, and especially at night.
Yeah.
When you're up and she's crying for a bit too long and you're like, why? She's fed. Is there something really wrong? There's something really wrong. There's something really wrong. I'm going to Google the hell out of this. And then I'm going to Google and I'm going to find all the things that it could be.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. I just followed every single thought that scary thought that entered my brain. So I was in this maze of like perpetual fear and worry and then tiredness and exhaustion because you're not sleeping. So,
did you feel like you were trying to hide that, or you were able to hide that from people around you, or do you feel like it just became a part of you?
I think it became a part of me, and I'm quite open as a person, so I was quite good at. And when we were filming The Split, actually, I remember saying. And I remember saying to both Nicola and Annabelle, actually, that I was worrying about having a brain tumour and all of this stuff. Every single worry that I had, and they'd be like, "You're fine," or I'd taken Fordy to the doctor because she had a little red line on her cheek, and I thought it was sepsis. I think. I was like, "Why? That's not even a symptom." Anyway, but. I definitely had. I was a bit more able to be open about it, I think, and definitely had people.
Well, that's a massive thing in itself, though, right? So I think we all look at, like we were saying about a symptom of postnatal depression. I think we can assume that people that have postnatal depression or depression look a certain way and function in a certain way, but you were not only the mother of newborn, but you were going to work and functioning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just because you have these things going on doesn't mean. So often it's the people that you don't expect
100%.
or suspect to have it that are, going through that.
Yeah.
Just because someone's smiling, that doesn't tell the whole picture.
Yeah. I think I saw a meme of exactly that. It's like, this is what depression looks like, and it's someone having like a joke. And that's exactly my experience, is that I was able to compartmentalise in a way, because I was able to go to work. And also I felt work was a bit of a saviour at that time, because I knew it. It didn't feel like unknown territory.
Yeah.
And actually the nerves that I've previously experienced with work, going in front of camera or were lessened because I was like, well, this is nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is nothing.
Well, especially if at home you're kind of going life, death in your
all
head.
the time. Yeah. You were just always in fight or flight.
Yeah.
And it did gradually get better, and especially with therapy.
Yeah.
But I just wish I'd known a bit early. I wish I'd had the self-awareness a bit earlier to maybe just get some medication or, something to just help me in those initial stages to just try and enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Because there were moments of, as I said, of the enjoyment. But now I look back and I think, oh God,
we can't think like that.
No,
I know those thoughts are there, but it's just that we can never rewrite what has been, but hopefully what has been makes us love and accept what is now even more.
Yeah.
Was there a point when you felt that lift?
There wasn't a sudden moment, but it was gradual, I think. I got better and better, and I worked hard at that. And she got older and more resilient.
Yeah.
You know, when they're so newborn and there's so many rules you hear about, you've got to wash your hands before you touch her and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I definitely wasn't one of those mums that's like, it's fine.
Pass it around.
Yeah. And so as I sort of was like watching her grow and, you know, enjoying her gradually more and more and more. That's how it happened.
Yeah.
So it was more of a kind of climb.
Literally
to the
seeing
summit.
her become more robust.
Absolutely. Good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just squishier.
Yeah.
She was quite skinny when she was born. She was a quite skinny newborn. Oh. So just seeing her little chubby legs and her chubby cheeks and, you know, starting to walk and talk and all of that.
Yeah.
And that, I think, has been my experience with motherhood since, is like for me, it's just got better and better and better and better and better. She's 7 now, Fordy, and the conversations we have, I just treasure because she's got so many interesting things to say. I mean, obviously I find her fascinating. I'm her mother. But I love that. And I do, the baby bit is cute. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But when they become little people with opinions and thoughts and, you know, personalities, like I before I was a parent, I just thought that all kids were the same. It's just a small person. It's just they run around and then they become a proper person. And that's not true at all. They're very, very individual little people who have their own very distinct personalities.
Yeah.
And I love learning about hers.
You started doing the juggle between motherhood and working very, very early. You know, as you said earlier, 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And at the time, you thought you would have Fordy with you on set.
Well, the great thing about filming a series is that unless you're Nicola Walker, who's in every scene every day, you're in and out.
Yeah.
So it was ideal because I wasn't away and it was filming in London, so it was close home. So we had help, but what I thought was a good idea was having her in the show.
Oh.
So I thought, I'm playing a nanny.
I didn't realise this. I'd seen about her. I'd seen this, but I hadn't figured out where she was in the show.
No.
Okay, this makes sense.
She was there's a scene, there's one scene where I have the baby and I was like, I have my real baby. I've got one. And it was a terrible idea. It was a terrible idea, G.
Why?
Because the two worlds colliding was just, no. Like, I could have absolutely. She came to set. We had a nanny, and she came to set with our brilliant nanny, and I could dip in and out, and that's fine. But actually, having her there while I was trying to do some acting, but changing her nappy, and she's just like looking into the camera, like, and I'm like, and then and I'm worrying like whether she's putting in a good performance. She's being good. She's good. She got it. She talented. Do we think she's got something? And I just couldn't do my own. Like all my wires went.
But that's like proper mother thing right there.
Yeah.
How is she doing in
the context of this? Like, oh no, she cried. Oh no, and she was tiny. She was like 3 months old. And I don't know how the parents of the kids who do acting do it. Like,
but I guess it's a very different thing, isn't it? Because usually, if you were in that scene with a different baby, you'd look at that completely differently.
Well, completely.
You wouldn't be so physically, emotionally, mentally attached.
Exactly.
So you would you would
And
literally
that
handle
would
that
have
baby
been-
in a different way.
Yeah, and it would have been fine had I been playing a new mother. I wasn't. I was playing a nanny who was sort of talking about something else and doing 5 million other things and not really, you know, paying attention to the nappy.
Whereas the new mum in you is still.
Whereas I was like, and they swap in babies. That's what they.
Right.
So there's a funny shot in the series 1 where you cut to me and there's Fordy, my daughter, and then you cut back and then you cut back again and it's a different baby.
No way.
Yeah. So I'm like, so
Every mother's worst nightmare. Looking down, it's a different baby.
It's a different baby. Yeah, oh God. So it didn't go as well as I'd hoped. But it's fine. Lesson learnt. It's all learning, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think I won't. Although she now has come to sets and she finds it incredibly boring.
Does she? I love the fact that that is her normal. Know what I mean? It's just kind of like, yeah, this is what mummy does.
Yeah. In fact, we got in an Uber the other day and they said, "What's your name?" And she went, "Fiona from The Split." I was like, oh God. But yeah.
And since then, how are you finding the juggle and the balance?
Pretty good, actually. We don't, now she's at school, and since school, we haven't needed any more help because we can juggle. My husband's freelance, so we can juggle between us.
Yeah.
And acting's pretty good unless you're away abroad. That's hard.
Well, how long were you away for the Split Barcelona?
It was 2 months. That was quite hard.
Okay.
That was quite hard, and she struggled with that. And so did I. But aside from that, it's been quite good in terms of managing it. And as I said earlier, I mean, I can cope with one and one job, and that's about it. I don't think I could do a novel as well and a hike and a.
Oh, you just never know.
Maybe.
Let's see what's thrown at you.
Let's see. Let's see.
Is motherhood what you thought it would be?
I mean, I don't know what I thought it would be, to be honest. I don't think I had, again, like that looking in I have ADHD, and looking in front of me is really...
Well, let's talk about that, because you got diagnosed
Let's go.
later in life.
I did.
And what was it that led you to get that diagnosis?
Well, I had always thought that it was actually an actor who had kind of been like, well, yeah, I definitely got ADHD. And I was like, why do you think that? And he's like, well, this. And I was like, huh.
Is that just not normal?
Okay. And then I was like, and then I read and 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 I was like, oh, okay, right. So yeah, I went and did a test and had an assessment, and yeah, turns out it's true. Always at school, always had she doesn't listen. They didn't understand like why. I was forgetful, all of the classic stuff. But I was lucky because my mum just kind of thought I was charming. So there was a kind of positive spin on it as a child, I think. And also I channeled it into creativity in a big way. So there was that.
Yeah.
But I definitely think becoming a mum sort of threw a massive spanner in the works, because there's lots of things about having ADHD. And I think that someone was saying that there is a correlation between postnatal depression and ADHD.
Really?
Early research, yeah. Just the ability to cope with the newness and certainly with the big feelings that come with becoming a mum. I think I struggled with, it's executive function, right? So it's the things that the organisation and the planning and all of that stuff, which I always think of mums being
organised.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Right.
They have snacks prepared and everything is thought through. And so I sort of am that mum, but because I have high anxiety about it, so I'm panicking so I think of every eventuality, and try my best to not be the real me, if you see what I mean, in that scenario, and not just be like, it's fine, which is, what I was previously, I guess. But I'm starting to try to, trust myself and know that it's okay to not be the super organised one. I am a bit kinder to myself now, I think. And also just a lot more capable than I gave myself credit for, considering, I'm impaired.
Well, do you put things in place to make you feel like... Because when I've started allowing myself, and I'm not diagnosed with anything, but when I know that I'm feeling overwhelmed and I can feel it in my body, I will now allow myself to step away. I'll say to Tom,
that's great.
I can't handle this. I'm stepping away.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? When
you.
You're feeling it.
Yeah, I think because it's kind of a constant. Yes, there's burnout, I think they call it. What I'm trying to do is give myself credit for all the good stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
The superpowerness of it, and know that is something that I would never swap. Mm-hmm. I think it's the reason I can act, for example.
Yeah.
Because I'm able, I think, to think pretty fast in high stakes moments and pretty lucidly, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to look for all the positives. For sure.
If you could write a letter on motherhood, who would it be to, and what would you say?
So I think I'd write it to my daughter. If she were to ever get pregnant, for her to open then.
Yeah.
And I think I would tell her to trust herself, because I think my experience was that I stopped trusting myself and my instincts, and when I gave birth, it's like I suddenly lost touch of who I was and stopped believing any of the thoughts that I'd had before.
Yeah.
And looked to everybody else. So I'd look to, my friend who's doing Gina Ford, and I'd look to this person who's doing that. Oh, they must have it right, because I had zero confidence in what I thought about things, to the point where I was wouldn't watch TV with her. I mean, because I was like, well, screens are bad, so we'll listen to Mozart. And so I would say just know that you're the best person for this job, only you, and trust that, is what I would say to her.
I love that. We end the podcast with you completing 3 sentences. The first one is being a mum means.
Being a mum means more. To me, it felt a little bit like I was Dorothy. I'm going to use a wicked analogy. And I had woken up in Oz, and it's in Technicolor, right? It's brighter. Everything's more beautiful and kind of otherworldly and amazing. But also, there's like a witch and some flying monkeys. It's more of everything, is what I'm saying. Yeah. It's everything that was before. We're all. It's love. It's all of the joy, the delight that you experienced before emotionally. More.
But the threat is bigger, and everything.
But it's bigger.
It's
brighter.
It's
uncharted. It's like it's a flying monkey.
Since having a child, I
think I felt more guilt than I ever did before.
Really?
Yeah, I think that, and not just mum guilt. Yeah. Kind of. That I should be something other than I am. Because my idea of what a good mother is sometimes isn't me. It's like seeing all those other people having it all together and...
Oh, mate, you don't know what's going on behind those doors.
I know. The nature of my job is that there's really, really busy times, and then there's down times. Yeah. And now in the down times, I cannot be... doing something chilled because I feel too guilty.
But also, is that because of where we are in society, where we
Maybe.
feel like people are doing this and that all the time?
I mean, the growth since she was born, that was 7 years ago, and the growth of, I guess, social media in that time. So it could be that.
Final sentence for you to complete. I'm happy when?
Oh, when I'm on the sofa under a blanket with her, watching a movie. Yeah. And even happier if I've picked the movie.
Okay.
And she likes it.
Are
like
you trying
it's an
to?
Old one.
Yeah, okay. So what have you tried and tested?
So she's very reluctant with a lot of my suggestions.
Okay.
Just straight off the bat, no. But some get through. And most recently, Princess Bride, which was one of my childhood absolute favourites, and Hook.
Oh, very good.
Both of which she really loved.
Fiona, I've loved this chat.
Oh, my God.
Thank you so much.
It's been so nice.
I've still got another hour of The Split to go, which I'm going to watch on my way home.
Okay, great.
But thank you so much, because I think it's such a big thing to have someone come in and go, when you don't share things that you've spoken about here publicly, to kind of go, now tell me all about you.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
I prefer this.
Yeah.
Like it's more. I like talking, and I'm we've all experienced, as mums, we've all experienced similar things. So, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.